Hi, my name is Hydra. I used to do game design in school, and for some reason I felt the need to make this video, and it's about Riven's base VFX being updated. So let me first start off with something simple. All of the new particles will make it feel like all of the other particles are somewhat outdated, since this is only a base VFX, but quite a lot of minute changes are gonna make the new particles look like they're out of date. And let me simply begin with the past. So I'm not gonna discuss the other skins in details. I actually have a client up that we will demonstrate the differences between the current character and VFX and the newer ones. Also, I'm on the PvE to try and see if they were on yet, but they're not on, so I can't actually have a true comparison. I only have the video. And what this new VFX change does is it cleans up a lot of unnecessary noise and tries to improve gameplay clarity, which is fine in itself. There's one critical thing that is gonna be apparent with the basic attacks, and that is that they remove the blood, and there's a good reason as to why it's really bad. Let's begin there, actually. So I've put the video to 1/4 speed, and as you can see, every time she hits someone with her blade, it has a green explosion. When I saw this, I didn't know what was off with this, but something about the basic attacks just felt off, and after reading some of the comments, I felt like there were a lot of valid criticisms when it came to auto attacks. When you look at the current in-game model, she hits and blood goes out of the character. Albeit the blood effects are seemingly very random, they just splurt out of the character. And as I said, in the new VFX, it's just like a poison cloud. It looks like Urgot's Q, and that's really bad. So also with this VFX update, they should be able to conceptualize Riven's character. And Riven is a warrior from Noxus who resides in Ionia, who wields or has wielded a giant runic blade with tons of energy that she mastered throughout using it. And that's how she became famous. I think as a Noxian war general. I think she was that. So, the first thing you expect with a fighter style character that uses a blade is blood, in my opinion. When you look at these auto attacks, you know, there's nothing special about them, but the hits just feel right. If I use a Q, blood splurts out like she did a very critical hit, which is fine because Q is I believe it's called a basic ability. It's one of her basic abilities that clearly demonstrates on how powerful she is as a sword user. And the new hit effects just don't look like it. So let's go to the Q. As you can see, the effect is a green slash. And when you just say it like that, it's basically the same thing. It's a green slash. But there's a lot less impact when you look at it the same way that you look at it as the old ones. Once again, the VFX on the hits are green, they're not blood. They just kind of like splurt out, but they're not fitting. And then her Q VFX are, as I said, to remove noise, and they are supposed to create this very power dynamic slash. But the particle that's being used on the ground is this it's supposed to be a hitbox, but it does not fit the character to me. Let's look at the character when she uses her Q. Every time she uses her Q, the ground breaks up. That's a very clear indicator of her power. Her power comes from the runic energy that she's using, and at the same time from the movement that she's doing, because she's supposed to break up the ground with the power that she's channeling within her body using the runic blade. And that just doesn't feel the same with me. The Q, the third part of her Q actually feels really good. But combined with the hit splash, it just feels a lot less powerful. When you look at this first and second Q, they just feel not powerful. Let me actually just show you the video in a clear speed, in a normal speed. When you look at the Qs, they feel way too fast to say anything about the character, and they feel a bit washed and too bright. This is why I think the noise actually added to Riven's character. And also, as you can see, the particles that she has, or that she's using when she uses her Q, are also actually quite white. They're as a form of motion blur of the sword. And that's simply just not present within the VFX update. So that's all the criticisms that I have for the Q. As for the W, this is actually a very quick part. I actually think that the current W that they're using is quite good. So let's look at it in slow motion. While it's actually good, there is this sense of it's poison. It feels like it looks like poison. And this is gonna be really hard to get out of the character because she has the green VFX and it's always been a part of her character. So a bright spot on this is, wait, can't get the right frame. Can you see the electricity? I can't for the life of me get the frame. Okay, so let's go frame by frame. You can see all of the electricity. Here it's the most apparent. The electricity is very, very apparent, and that actually creates a sense of power. While the VFX around the actual explosion feel very washed out. The reason why this feels washed out is because the graphic simply is washed out. It's all, but this may be the video, but it's all just washed out. While her current one shows straight up lines when she uses it. And that feels very clear to me that this is this ground rocking ability that's supposed to stun the player. What they could do is they could, again, make these very clear lines. They could maybe indent runes into the ground in the same way that they're doing the third Q. When you see this feels like she's very powerful. Let's say you added this kind of effect to her W. You can create a very clear hitbox and also a very clear power trope. Let's say you take the obvious like groundbreaking ability, add some like green or white green lines that like go from the center outwards, and then also add the electricity that she gets when she uses the W. That in itself would create a very powerful stun, or a very powerful looking stun. What I am saying is this is clearly the one thing that shines, but also one thing that Riven had trouble with, especially when you look at Dragonblade. Dragonblade was a skin that suffered from this.
What conflict awaits?
Okay, so now the E. The E is weird. I like it, I also don't. So let's start with the dashing animation. There's a lot of wind effects. There's a gray like wind effect that shows that she's dashing forward.
My spirit is not lost.
Her current version has a straight line that shows that her runic power is like it's kind of like this kind of, what's it called, after image. That's what it kind of feels like. As for actual shield, it's supposed to portray runic energy that is shielding her through these physical pieces. As for the current one, she gains a shield and is protected by the pieces of her sword. So a fair criticism that I feel like what's a fair criticism is the fact that both of these are bad. Both this and this is very bad. What I do think that the original did very well was the shield, the actual particles. This one obscures her character. This one does not. Why do I think this one is bad? It's because it obscures her character. The lines that are protruding from it are very different. They're not as like sparkly. They do try to put that in the actual ability, but as you see, it's really not that noticeable. This shield has like a clear line from which it's coming from where this one just kind of encapsulates the character. And I really feel like the default one is just way better than the current one. The runes, I feel like they should be removed, and like if you do want to have runes, add decals basically. Decals are probably the best thing to happen. Like if you put the pieces away and then just add floating decals, that would be the best part. Let's go over to the ultimate, and boy, is there's a part about this that I really do like, and there's a part that I really don't. Before we go to the ultimate, let's go a bit to the passive, because I wanted to discuss this. It's really good. And here you can see this is the new passive. This is the old passive. The old passive is really noisy. It has these particles that kind of feel out of date. It feels like the flash particles are back. And they go around her glove. If you've seen the new trailer, you see that her glove is not present in the same way that it is in game. And it feels a lot better. I really do feel like they need to update the character to fit the trailer's description, because it's just so much better. So, this is really bad. It's very clear, but it's bad from a visual perspective, but it clearly fits her character. It's also a very light, but also very white green, which fits, in my opinion, it fits the character. All of the visuals within the, there we go. All the visuals have this kind of more darker but green vibes, while her old kit had this more white green, which was very clear and very apparent. Also, if you make it white, there's a possibility that it will be better for people who are colorblind or partially colorblind. Also, as you can see in slow motion, the particle effects of the passive just encapsulate her sword. This is a very welcome change. This is good. I really have nothing to say about this other than the ultimate, as you can see here. When her passive is active on her ultimate, her ultimate is not lit up, and it just feels inconsistent. You can see that this is actually part of the model, and this is not. And that's something that the original actually does very well. It just encapsulates the sword in a giant green energy. Everything's 3D. The passive is still able to be shown, and it's great. As for the particles, when you use your ultimate, everything's just bigger, and that's how it will be. It doesn't need to be any special particles. Okay, so now let's actually go over to the ultimate. So, again, the sword, it's not that bad, but it's not great when you look at it when her passive is active. It still feels the same way, it's just the passive just feels off-putting. Also, you can see that there's a little bit of more like electric particles being shown. Okay, so now for the ultimate. The ultimate is a general improvement. I don't really have anything to say about it, other than it needs to be just more white. It's supposed to be a wind slash. Even with her runic powers, her abilities are more kind of wind-based, which creates this power dynamic of her being very strong. It creates the power dynamic of she swings her sword really well and really fast. That is just not apparent. And it's just a straight up improvement from her current one. It's really not that much to say about it. So, what I would like to see is more kind of white VFX. I want the blood to be re-added. I would want the shield to be not I wouldn't want the shield to be an actual orb around the character. I wanted to kind of create a circle around the character, which Riot has done a lot of the times. And the biggest change I want, which mainly goes for the Q, is that I want the Qs to be powerful. I feel like every time she does the Q, she takes this big step. She takes this big leap, which she uses the power from the runic sword to propel her forward. The circle that she currently creates just creates this power dynamic of the sword just being really powerful, but she's not breaking the ground apart, which is very apparent within the current Qs. She breaks the ground apart, and it, as you can see, it has this green underline, which means that she's using the runic powers to create this very powerful ability. As for everything else, this seems to just be it. Also, Riot, please fix. I hate this. It happens like every game, and I'm so tired of it. I really can't play the game in Gorillas anymore. That's it, really.